This is the Rebound Podcast with Coach Matt Doherty.
Welcome to the Rebound Podcast. I'm Matt Doherty, and I'll be your host. On this podcast, we focus on leadership and overcoming adversity in an open and raw kind of way. We discuss failures and how to rebound from them. I became passionate about this topic in 2003. In 2001, I was voted AP National Coach of the Year as the head coach at the University of North Carolina. And only 2 short years later, I was asked to resign. That sent me on a journey to find what was missing in my life. I found that leadership and the principles of leadership were some of the critical components that I needed to improve upon. I needed to learn and grow. With me today is Harris Barton, 2-time first-team All-Pro with the San Francisco 49ers, won 3 Super Bowls, played at the University of North Carolina, and currently runs an investment fund. Harris, thanks for being on the show. Tell the audience what it's like to be Harris Barton now.
Well, Harris Barton in San Francisco is a little bit different than Harris Barton in North Carolina. You can see my shirt. I got a proud moment watching them beat Duke yesterday. But it's nice to be out here. I have 4 kids. All 4 of my kids will attend the University of North Carolina. We live in Palo Alto, California, which is a long way from the University of North Carolina, but it's where my career took me, and it's where I'm at now, and super excited to be on the program today, talking with you, Matt.
Well, thank you. It's really cool I bumped into you at a lacrosse game in Chapel Hill. My niece was playing for Notre Dame, and you were at the game, and I've known you for a long time, ever since you were under center. You were on the offensive line at UNC, and then proudly, bragged about you, even though I never met you when you were playing for the 49ers.
I was out there watching you play basketball when I was in college. So although we've never met, I've been cheering for you guys for a long time.
Thank you. It's cool. So tell us a little bit about leadership principles. I love to talk about leadership, and I was doing a little research on you. And you were known as a pretty intense player that was always prepared. I read a story about Pat Crowley, who I know, and obviously you played with. And he said one of the first nights that you guys were staying in the hotel, the night before the game, in the middle of the night, you were rearranging the furniture and working on your footwork for pass sets in your underwear. Tell us about that, and then how that preparation, that mindset helped you not only with the 49ers, but with your business now.
Well, I was always I was an average athlete, honestly. And I knew that coming out of high school, I had a coach that really kind of saw that I had decent athletic ability. And I recognized that I probably couldn't have gotten into the University of North Carolina without athletics. So he put it in my head that, I had to outwork everybody. I certainly outwork, outthink. And so a lot of what I did and a lot of the preparation that I did for football games was outworking people. And I knew that, hey, if I outwork people, then some of my physical deficiencies would be overcome if I could outsmart people as well. So that's kind of what I was doing in that hotel room as I was getting ready to play. I forgot who we were playing, but again, my routine was, hey, always get ready, always work on pass sets, always work on your run blocking sets. Just because when you get into a game situation, you never know when, you're going to need that. So that's kind of how I did it. And it worked for me in football. It worked for me in college, and then I went on the pros. And again, I outworked people and certainly was on great teams out here with the 49ers. But when I got out of sports, or sports got out of me in 1999, I decided, hey, you know what? I got to be a rookie again. I got to start all over again. And if I'm going to be successful in the business career, I've got to, go back and outwork people. So that's kind of how I approached my business career, by getting on red eyes, flying to New York, meeting people, pushing the envelope, calling in favors of people that I talked to for years and years, and just really outthinking, outworking, and out hustling people. And again, it's a humbling experience to play offensive lineman. It's a humbling experience to try and get into business, especially out here. And I think my work ethic was really what kind of propelled me past a lot of the other people that were trying to do the same thing.
Well, you're humble, saying that you weren't a great athlete, but you were a first-round draft choice, and you played at such a critical position, protecting the quarterbacks, creating holes for running backs. That drive, I imagine a lot of players, and I'm very curious. You see players that when their career is over at 30, 33 years old, if they're lucky, are done. And their identity is wrapped up in the sport, and they've pissed away a lot of money. Where did your drive come from to take your career from football and transition it into basketball? Into business? Why that passion? Why that drive?
My dad, always told me, hey, listen, you know what, if you're going to be successful, you're just going to have to outwork people. And he was not a big football fan. He was a big education fan. Loved Broadway shows, but he didn't like football. But he enjoyed watching me succeed because he recognized that I was really kind of doing something that nobody could imagine. Here I was a Jewish kid out of Atlanta, Georgia, playing in the NFL, playing for the San Francisco 49ers, winning Super Bowls. It's kind of unheard of. And I realized it was really kind of unheard of. And I recognized that when I was done playing, that I was going to have to do something else. And because I'd be 35 years old, and everybody wants to do something else. And so I recognized really early that being here in San Francisco in the Silicon Valley was a big advantage to me. And so early on in my career in football, I would take my days off, which were Tuesdays, and I'd go and meet with the technology wizards that were out here, the people that started Intel, the people that started Yahoo, the people that started Cisco, people that started Sun Microsystems. And those guys became my buddies. They became my friends. And I went to their kids' bar mitzvahs, and I spoke in their elementary schools, and I went to their charity events, all with the idea that, hey, these are going to be my friends, kind of my board of directors when I get finished playing football. And sure enough, when I got finished playing football, I went back to those guys and said, hey, what should I do? And they said, hey, you were a great citizen here in the Silicon Valley. I remember when you came to my kids' elementary school. I remember when you came to my charity event. Hey, I'm here to help you out. And so most of the guys there recognize that, hey, here's a young kid that's wants to get back into business. He's got a little bit behind all of his peers because he's been playing football while they've all been going to business school. But they allowed me to kind of into their world, and once I got into the world, like I said before, I tried to outwork everybody, and I tried to make it a passion of mine to be great at it as well.
I love that. I love these stories. What I'd like to do right now, let's go to break, and when we come back, Harris is going to discuss the greatest rebound of his career. The Rebound is sponsored by Sector Spider ETFs, a unique family of exchange-traded funds that divide the S&P 500 into 11 sector index funds. You can buy just the sectors you like or customize the S&P 500 by weighting the 11 sectors to meet your financial objective. Please visit them on the web at sectorspiders.com. That's Sector, SPDRS.com.
Alps Portfolio Solutions Distributor, a registered broker-dealer, is the distributor for the Select Sector Spider Trust.
Harris, tell us about the biggest rebound of your life, a moment where you may have failed, lost a loved one, made a bad decision. What was it, and how did you rebound from it?
Well, I think, I failed because I made a bad decision. The business that I'm in, when I started after I got out of football, it's what they call a fund of funds business, and where you take money from investors and you invest it into private equity funds or venture capital funds that individuals usually can't get into. I started the business in 1999. We were up and running. We were investing in venture capital firms. We were investing in private equity firms. We started to hire people. Those people that we hired came on, and the people that we hired got a line of credit at the Silicon Valley Bank. The Silicon Valley Bank we were using that line of credit to kind of what they call fronting or prepaying capital calls from our venture capital firms and private equity firms. And what we would do is once we make the commitment, we send the money in, and then we backfill it with investments from individuals. It was not a controversial thing. It was pretty common out here to be doing it. But the problem happened was when the Silicon Valley Bank, or actually when Lehman Brothers imploded in 2008, the Silicon Valley Bank got scared and called the line of credit. And once you call the line of credit in this business, your business is pretty much done. So in other words, Silicon Valley Bank came in and without really any type of problems, just said, "Hey, that's over. We're going to take over your business." So it needed a pivot. I needed a rebound. I kind of licked my wounds for a little bit and then got back on the horse and went and talked to some business leaders that had been my mentors for the last 15, 16 years, and asked them what I should do. And all of them said, "Listen, you know what? You need to rebound. You need to come back. You've done nothing wrong. It's just you got some bad luck here, and you need to figure out how to do it." And so what I did was I kind of pulled back. I fired everybody. I went to work in this business by myself. I spent 2011. I started my new business, and I worked by myself. And now I have rebounded to the fact that I've got about $1 billion of assets under management. Same business model, and it's kind of working. So,
Wow.
tough times. The world was in a tough environment at that point in time. 2008 was when Madoff happened and when Lehman Brothers imploded and the stock market went down 50%. But to come back from it was a challenge. But hey, you know what? That's what you do. You gotta rebound.
What was the lowest point? Was it a conversation with your wife, your kids? What was that lowest point?
The lowest point was when my neighbors were bringing over lasagna because they had read in the paper that my business had gone bankrupt. And then you start getting the yellow pieces of paper for from the credit card company because your payment's late, and
Wow.
there's some low moments in there.
How much money are we talking about, Harris?
Well, at the time, it really there was no personal guarantees on it at all, but it was in the millions of dollars. And again, once we figured out how to fix the problem, we did. But again, once the cat was out of the bag, I mean, we had lost the business. None of our investors lost any money. We didn't lose any money. The bank didn't lose any money. It's just, it's just a matter of we had to restructure and had to get it done. But it was a very public. It was very demoralizing. It was a public demoralization because I've always thought and I always knew that if athletes that try and move into business have a very difficult time, and we were one of the ones that were super successful in what we were doing, and everybody was building us up, putting us up on that big soapbox and singing our praises. But then when things went wrong, the press wants to kick your teeth in. And so if it would have been somebody else that didn't have 3 Super Bowl rings, it would have been, nobody would have ever heard about it. But since we were very public and very out there, and we had won Super Bowls and we were in the Silicon Valley, and the media kind of beat the crap out of us. And you know what? We had to come back from that. And I pretty much did, and I'm proud of that. But it was a tough period of time.
So you you've dealt with that your whole career as a football player, the media, right? Your team's on a win streak, you win a Super Bowl, then all of a sudden you lose the game or you don't make the playoffs. And, high highs, low lows, as John F. Kennedy would say, victory has many fathers, defeat is an orphan. So you're kind of used to it as an athlete, but now it's business. Did you lose confidence at that moment in your business career?
Oh yeah, you lose total confidence. I mean, if I didn't have people like George Roberts and people like Doug McKenzie and people like, some of the tech giants that are out here, guys that were my friends, guys that had mentored me my whole career, I was in trouble. And again, it comes back to the people that I met while I was playing football, people that I had relationships with. They all knew that, this was a mistake that I hadn't made, but again, my name was on the door, so I had to take the fault. But the kind of the story learned here is, hey, listen, you got to have good people, try and do the best you can, and if things go wrong, kind of circle back around and figure out what's wrong and try and go to your relationships and try and fix those things.
You've touched a couple times on mentors. You mentioned a personal board of directors. I'm a big believer in surrounding yourself with a board of directors, personal board of directors. I think you need a truth teller. I think you need a finance guy or an accountant, a lawyer. You need an encourager in your life. Who was the truth teller on your personal board of directors, and who was the encourager for you?
Well, the encourager was obviously my wife. She was always there with me. When I had to rebound in 2008, we had 4 kids. We had this big house in Palo Alto. Certainly, the money stopped. And sure, I'd saved some money while I was playing football, but again, I needed more. So she was encouraging. The kind of the mentor, the financial mentor would be somebody like a George Roberts. George Roberts is a longtime friend. I've known George. George is was the R in KKR. So for those of you who don't know, but George was there any time of the day, any time of the night, for encouragement and mentorship. And without him, really, you're dead in the water.
What did that look like when you say all hours of the night? Did he live in that region, in that neighborhood? Did you have,
Yeah,
did he just,
George George has an office here in Woodside, or actually in Menlo Park. Obviously, their main office is in New York City, but he lives in Atherton, which is real near here. We've been longtime friends, longtime golfing buddies, and he's just always there to lend a hand, lend an ear, give advice. Pretty amazing human being.
looking back, what's the biggest lesson you learned from the '08 collapse?
You know what? Don't trust other people, and don't borrow money from banks. Those are the things that were when I've been in this business a long time, but it's one of those things that if somebody once told me that if you can buy anything, you can buy any type of building, you can buy any type of house, but if you can't control the sale, that's when you're in trouble. And we got into a situation where we couldn't control the sale, and you know what? Then the demons and the vultures, they all come out, and they all want to pick you clean. So lesson learned is don't borrow.
You talked about the quote of victory has many fathers, defeats an orphan. When things aren't going well, people scatter. George Roberts didn't scatter, but you remember the people that call you, and you remember the people that don't. Whether there's anybody that, in any situation where somebody didn't call you, where it kind of hits you like, man, I thought we were boys. And you don't have to mention names.
Yeah, no, you do feel that. But when I had a situation in business, my guys called. The guys called, and one of the guys, my business partner was Ronnie Lott. And Ronnie Lott, man, what a stud! I mean, that guy's, he's got your back. And Ronnie was always there, always supportive. But most of my guys were good about it. The guys that I really didn't care about were the guys that didn't call me back. But you do see that a lot in sports, right? I mean, I'll never forget when I got hurt in my final game. You come home and all of a sudden nobody's calling you. All your boys are, they're often doing their own thing, and nobody wants to call the guy that's hurt sitting at home.
Mm-hmm.
And you learn that it's pretty lonely out there, and you got to got to find good people to surround yourself with, and hopefully those guys, they'll be there when you have difficult moments, and hopefully you'll be there for them
That's
when they
right.
have difficult moments.
Amen. All right. What question, Harris, should I have asked you that I didn't?
Why did you decide to get into the financial services business?
Okay.
And the answer to that is because I'd always loved finance, and coming out here, I was always I always wanted that. I was curious. I was always curious, and when I got out here, I recognized that I got here in 1987, Silicon Valley, and that's right when the internet was just getting started. Is when Apple was trading at $3 a share. I mean, it was, Microsoft was just getting started. Google hadn't been founded yet. Intel was kind of the dominant source out here, and I was curious about what those firms were doing, and so, you know, it was not apparent that that was the way I was going to go, but I was curious enough to recognize that, hey, you know what? The venture capital industry out here is what drives the home prices, it drives the businesses, it drives the stock market. And I was interested in that. And, it's not a common thing for most guys to have that type of drive to go into that business. And that's kind of the reason why I enjoy it so much. It's a challenge out here. It's a unique. Maybe I should step back and tell you a better way. All your life in sports, you come together, especially in football. You come together in August, and the coach stands up in front of you and says, "Hey, we're trying to win the Super Bowl. That's the goal. We're trying to win the Super Bowl." And your whole career and your whole life, you're like, man, you're driving toward that one thing. And when you get to that Super Bowl, man, it is exciting. It's unbelievable, especially when you win it. And so when you get out of sports, there's really nothing that I have found that can kind of mimic that. And that's why a lot of athletes go the wrong way, right?
Yep.
Because they can't get that type of emotion. So now what I found was, and the reason why I love this industry is because I walk into a startup company and it's exactly the same thing as Bill Walsh standing in front of the 55 guys in a room in Sacramento before a football season. Hey, you got 55 people from different parts of the universe, different parts of the country, speaking different language, all with a common goal to win. And man, when it works, it's exciting, man. When you see somebody ring the bell at the New York Stock Exchange with their company that they've been working with for 15 years, and all of a sudden now you can see the monetization happen, man, that is exciting. That is a cool thing. And to be a small part of that is like being a small part of winning a Super Bowl. Now, sure enough, there's a lot of times you lose,
Yep.
and a lot of companies don't have that big exit. But you know what? You learn from the losing, and it's the journey, and this being in this business, what I'm in now, is really the only thing that kind of is close to being the same journey as a football player.
Yeah. How about that? That is such a cool parallel. Well, Harris, thank you for joining us today and sharing your insights into business and being vulnerable. A big, strong football player is willing to be vulnerable. That's powerful. Leadership is a learned behavior. We all lead in some way, shape, or form. I challenge you to rebound. I challenge you to learn and grow. Feel free to contact me at dohertycoaching.com. Leadership is a learned behavior. You're a leader, whether you're a parent, a coach, a business owner, or a friend. We all lead in some way, shape, or form. Thanks for listening. I welcome any and all feedback. You can reach me at dohertycoaching.com.